Hello and welcome to Transformation Now, a division of SoaringHigher.rocks. And these programs are for career life transformation, providing information, tips, and techniques that you can use starting now, tips that will last a lifetime. Hi, I'm Rita Rocker Kraft, and as a speaker, international author, and trainer, my heart is to really help people in their lives, their careers, in all areas, and to equip you for what you truly deserve, the best. And so today is the second part of rising above the competition and things that will help you to be more confident, not only in business, but also in your personal relationships, things that will attract people to you instead of pushing away. So again, this is the second part of this program, Rising Above the Competition. And the first thing I'd like to do is talk about how not to sabotage your credibility, because that's so important. If we lose our credibility, people will pass us up for jobs, promotions, friendships, and so that is so key. And so one of the things that CEOs, politicians, and attorneys use, but also women who, or anyone who's of smaller stature, for instance, or people that just want to be heard. They have something important to say, and they want to say it. They do something that's called steepling. Okay, this is a really good negotiating posture. So if someone was giving a presentation even and talking to people trying to get their idea across, and this doesn't necessarily have to be in business. This could be if you're working with a group of people, with family members, whatever, is steepling. And what you do is you put your fingertips together and you put your elbows out. And so it's very casual. You can walk along, you can stand there when you're making a point that's really important, and maybe you're just talking hands-free and then you do this. What that's going to do actually is it gives you more presence. You take up more space. People will actually listen to you. I remember a few years back, I was talking to a man who owned it was actually a telemarketing company. And it was a Friday afternoon. He'd been on the road all morning. He'd been out of town all week. His office was too warm, and he was very sleepy. I understood that. I was not offended, I understood that. But I remember reading just not too long before that about steepling. And so the chair that I was sitting in had arms. So I sat there and just very casually put my arms up and did a steepling position. And he perked up and started listening to me. And I almost started to laugh because I thought it was kind of funny, but it actually worked. So steepling really is a good posture when you're trying to make a point, you're trying to have people listen to you. You know, another one is tilting your head. Okay, tilting one's head, and I'd love to see those of you who are watching what you're doing with your head, but if a person tilts their head when they're listening to you, that's a sign of a good listener. They're paying attention. However, if you're trying to make a point and you want to speak to a group or to anyone, you always want to make sure your head is up straight. Okay, so tilting, great for listening. Head up straight and forward when you're trying to make a point and have people listen to you and take you seriously. Another thing is nodding the head, and I find this so interesting. Research has shown that when a woman nods her head, she's going, go on, I'm listening. She wants more information. Where a man, when he nods his head, is usually saying, okay, I understand, we're done here. So I always tell guys, hey, give the ladies a break, because when we see that, we think, oh, go on, give me more information. And so, you know, if you see someone doing that, but you aren't finished yet, you're not really agreeing maybe necessarily, you can say, okay, I understand, but I need more information. Let's talk about this a little bit more. So they know the conversation has not been closed, okay? So that's really important as well. Introducing ourselves too soon. A lot of times we just say, hi, I'm so-and-so, and the person is actually taking 7 seconds to size you up. So it's usually about 7 seconds when you first meet someone that they're actually sizing you up. Could be nice hair, funny hair, nice teeth, shoes look like they've been out in the mud, looks like they slept in their clothes, this person looks really sharp and very friendly. So they're sizing you up those first 7 seconds. They're not really listening. And so that's one of the ways that we can forget names, is because we were looking at everything else instead. And so we talked about body language in the first part of this program and how 55% of our communication skills are nonverbal. Okay, so you first want to look at them, smile, be engaged, and then you can say what you do, for whom, and then give your name, because by then they're actually listening. And so I could say, I'm a speaker, author, and trainer in communication skills, professional image, business etiquette. My name is Rita Rocker Kraft. And so when you introduce yourself that way, they know what you do. And then, or I could say with SoaringHigher.rocks, I'm Rita Rocker Kraft. And so also put a little more punch in the last part of your name. And so they're actually listening to you, and they'll be able to hear you. They'll be able to remember your name better. So remember that first 7 seconds is about you visually. Usually the first 20 seconds that someone is listening to you talk, they will make a determination by how you're talking to them, what you're saying, your grammar, everything else that we'll talk about here in a minute. They're sizing you up to go, oh yes, I want to keep talking to you and have a conversation with you. Or they might be thinking, oh, I see somebody I have to go talk to, nice meeting you, and take off. And so that first 20 seconds you're talking is very, very important to be engaged with them, show them it's all about them, and have the body signals to go with it. Another thing is raising the voice at the end of every sentence, because if you do, you know what's going to happen. People are going to think, do you really know what you're talking about? And so we always want to make sure that we don't raise our voice at the end of the sentence, because it sounds like we're questioning everything we say. And especially people who are really no-nonsense business people will go, oh, this person sounds like they're questioning everything, so no, I don't think they're the right person for the job or whatever it might be. And so you always want to do that. Research has shown that 80% of the voiceovers on commercials where you see something going on but you hear a voice behind it are men. Why? Because of their lower pitch makes them more credible. So what I tell women too is, a lot of times when women are nervous, they talk too fast and their pitch goes high. You want to lower your pitch for more credibility, and that's very, very important. Okay, another thing is, when people try to finish your sentences for you, first of all, that shows they're not really listening. They just want to get to the next point, and that is rude. Okay, so the first thing you can do is raise your voice a little bit just to let them know, whoa, I'm still talking. If that doesn't work, you can raise a finger up and go, just go like that and try to continue talking. If that doesn't work, hold up a hand. And if that doesn't work, hold up that hand and say, excuse me, but I wasn't finished yet. And sometimes we have to take that role to go, hey, I'm still talking. It's rude to interrupt. You don't say that, but you show that by your body language, and you can still be nice and professional, but firm at the same time. That's when you want to put those shoulders back, drop them down, and have a stance with your head straight ahead that says, I'm talking, okay? And you can do that in a very friendly manner. Also, adjusting the way we speak according to who we're talking to. If someone is very quiet and very shy, and you tend to have a voice that's kind of boisterous, very strong, or maybe your body language is very strong, you want to tone that down so they're not intimidated, they don't feel uncomfortable. However, the reverse is true also. So we go stronger if we have to, but with a friendly body language, unless we have to, for some reason, not have friendly body language. But go up or down in your volume, in your pitch, according to who you're talking to. And the last time we talked about mirroring, where you do similar body signals. Well, this is kind of like verbal mirroring, because you want to kind of keep somewhat in step with the other person, so you don't show that you're overbearing or that you're too timid, because each one of those is not very positive. Okay, smart conversations, poor speaking skills really have serious consequences in careers. There was a lot of research done with executives of colleges, and they said that poor speaking skills and not a lack of not a lack of technical expertise or knowledge was actually the reason people did not get ahead in the working world. Okay, so you always want to think about that. And we can change our speaking skills, we can go online, we can learn so much to maybe enunciate better, to have a stronger, more confident voice in what we say. And again, a lot of that's on self-perception. You have to feel that you have something to say and that it's very valuable in order for other people to feel the same way, because they do treat us the way we treat ourselves. And so always remember that. I remember the very old movie with Audrey Hepburn, My Fair Lady, and how he took someone the gentleman took someone from off the street, and she sounded absolutely horrible. She was like a bag lady, street lady, and he turned her into the most refined, eloquent woman with great speech. So no matter where we've come from in our past, we can learn, we can practice speaking skills. The voice reveals so much about our education, our background, our self-confidence, our trustworthiness, our credibility, our mood. And there again, with education, like I know a man who's traveled in 41 countries, he's written 40 books so far. He quit high school at 15, and he never went back. He's very successful because even though he didn't finish his education, he spoke like he was very well educated. And I've seen story after story where people maybe spent their high school years living in shelters or other things that were really hard on them, and yet they said, no, I'm going to be successful and I'm moving forward. And so I want to encourage you, no matter what's happened in your life. I grew up very poor. I've got a really bad history. But I want to encourage you that no matter what's happened to you in your life, you can go forward, you can learn, you can communicate very well. And just think about that. So we can sound educated if we want to learn and go forward, and have a helpful friend, a coach, someone, a counselor work with you if you feel like you're uncomfortable in those areas, or I'd be happy to work with you, because it really does make a difference. We want to be friendly, we want to sound directed, we want to sound motivated, we want to sound confident rather than have low energy, nervousness, despair. And there are times when we're frustrated, we have to go into a meeting, we had a terrible time at home, we get to work, and it's like, oh, you know what? I have to leave that in the car and go in, do what I need to do, take a deep breath, smile at yourself in the bathroom, whatever you need to do, and do that, And so there are times we do have to separate. I know that in the working world, some companies think like, hey, leave all your personal stuff at home. It doesn't belong here. Well, I get that. However, we're all human beings. And so, again, a lot of times we need to show consideration and respect and really understand where somebody is at the moment. But on the regular basis, a lot of times we'll just have to leave those things, our temperament, our mood, our current mood, out of where we are at the moment, and then if you need to pick it up later, go ahead. You think of monotone, which flattens the voice, which makes people think, they don't have anything to say. And so always make sure you have enthusiasm in your voice. I love what's called euphemisms, and what that is softer ways of saying something that's very touchy, real touchy in life. Now we call it politically correct so many times. But euphemisms are quite interesting, how descriptions of things have changed over the years. Like if a person's fired or for whatever reason, and maybe they were let go just because the company couldn't afford them anymore, whatever, it's always downsized. We always say this person was downsized. We never call it any other thing but downsized anymore. I love this one, spatially perplexed. Ugh, what does that mean? That means drunk, okay? So a person, for some reason, they have to be spatially perplexed. They're not drunk. Physically challenged we use instead of having a handicap. That's the word we're not to use anymore. Full-figured, plus size is something else we do. Those are all considered euphemisms, kind of softening up a description of something. Phone skills are very important. I have programs on phone skills. I won't go into that much today. However, there are some things that remember that the phone is the first impression often in a company. And so we may be having a bad day again, but what people are hearing is going to make them think, I want to do business with you. I think you're rude. I'm never calling this company back. And so always make sure that you or an employee are answering the phone properly. I remember a really long time ago when I worked for the Nebraska Labor Department, and I worked for the head of the department, and I had also been through modeling school and taught modeling classes, and the lady who owned the school used to just rip me mercilessly apart all the time because she wanted to perfect everything in me, and she could be brutal if she wanted to. But she called the office one day to talk to me for a moment, and I said, Unemployment Carlson's office. And she said, "Oh my gosh, you sounded so rude and unprofessional." And at first I thought, well, same to you. And then I went, oh, I better listen to myself. As I started listening to myself, I thought, she's right, I do. And so even though that hurt at the moment, it really helped me to realize I needed to answer the phone in a much more professional manner, especially for the person that I was working for. And so always listen to yourself. I know some people, especially if they need to sound motivated, if they're trying to make a sales call or something like that, will, if they can, so they don't bother other people, they will stand up. If they're by a window, they will stand up and look out the window, not to be gawking at what's going on, but to get the blood flowing, to get some energy flowing. And so if you need to stand up, if you need to go to the bathroom and come back and make a phone call or whatever, you want to do that to get the blood flowing, to sound more positive, to sound more into the conversation. So that really does make a difference. People don't see what's going on in our end of the phone. And so they're going by tone of voice very much in addition to what we're actually saying to them. So you always, do what you need to do. Some people literally put a mirror by their phone, and as they're talking, they actually look at the mirror. Do I have a smile on my face? Do I have a scowl on my face? How do I look? Because however your facial expressions go, that's usually how the tone of your voice and what you're saying goes. And so remember that if you need to have a mirror by your phone, go for it. It really is helpful. I've done that myself. So your voice will reflect how you're doing, how you're feeling, how you feel about your business, about your company. Do you like what you're doing? Do you like the products you're selling or whatever? So the voice reflects all of that. And try to follow the cues that the other person is giving. Again, if they sound like they're all business and no nonsense, okay. Be courteous and friendly and be all business and no nonsense. However, if the type you can tell they're just more warm and fuzzy, be a little bit warm and fuzzy before you start into the actual business part of the conversation. Again, that makes a huge impact on your success for business relationships and personal relationships as well. Another thing is noise. Sometimes we don't realize, there's noise in the background, there's people blowing their nose and coughing, and they're not trying to cover it up when they're on the phone, things like that. And so always be conscious of what sounds are going on around you when you're talking to people on the phone. Another thing is speaker phones. A lot of times we just want to put something on speakerphone. You never, ever do that in a cubicle. If you have to take a conversation to a private room to do that, if it's something very private, then do that. Speakerphones should only be used where you can shut the door or where everybody's involved, but not in cubicles or open areas where other people have to listen to it. And if it's something that is going to be, maybe there's a potential legal issue or something like that, you might want to have someone else in the office listening to the conversation as well, but let the person know there's someone else listening in on the conversation. That's also very important. And watch the 60-second rule. Usually, unless we're explaining something specifically, you want to make sure that you're not carrying on the whole conversation. So the 60-second rule, and you do this out in public, out in networking too, is stop, take a breath, let the other person insert their comments into the conversation. That's so important. And then if you don't have information that a person needs, say, I'm going to have to look that up. I will be sure to get back to you by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon or something like that. But make sure that you're helping the person out there, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that information. Really? Well, who am I calling? And so think about that too. And then say it's something like, it was very nice talking to you. We'll make the final decision by Friday. This was very, very beneficial, etc. So those things are really, really important to help you move forward in life and to create a new destiny in the areas that you want to go into. Phone etiquette, just a little bit about that. It's gone crazy. There's not a lot of cell phone etiquette at all anymore. And so you want to identify yourself if it's business. You want to say who you are. If you're passing the call on to someone else, say, may I tell him or her who's calling? Now, for those of you who are older or you like to watch old movies and you remember Shirley Temple, I remember one time when I had to screen this company president's calls and I said, may I tell him who's calling? And the guy said, yeah, Shirley Temple. And I thought, oh, thanks a lot. And so that's what I had to tell the boss. That's who he says he is. So people can be a little goofy sometimes. Make sure that they have enough time to actually talk to you. When you have cell phones, please put them on vibrate when you're with other people. Sometimes you can go to the restaurant and you see 5 or 6 people at the table and every one of them is on their cell phone. Okay, that takes away from the conversation. Some families now are saying, hey, everybody puts their phones in a basket when we're having dinner. And schools, I think some schools are doing this, all schools should do that, so that people are actually paying attention. Funerals, weddings, classroom seminars, all of those, the person should never be on their phone. I've seen this in Congress, people are on their phone. No, that's very, very rude. So you never want to do that. As far as emails, we have a few minutes left. That's something I want to quickly cover, and then we can go into some of the other areas later. Emails are so important, but a lot of times people will forward something and then forward on to someone else, and they have not cleaned up everybody's comments. When you email, especially in business, you want to make sure that you only have the most pertinent current information, and that's it, unless the whole story is something that a person should scroll down and read through. And so be specific in the subject line. It could be financial planning session May 12th or something like that in there. At a corporation, when I was doing some training for them, I actually heard of a story where the subject line in someone's email at work was, "You're fired." Okay, that should never happen. Emails are for verbal discussions, things like that, but anything that's private or that should be followed up on privately should never be in an email. You can follow up with an email, but when something like that happens, whoa, that's not good. And so we have to be careful, clean up our messages, clean up language, know that people, for the most part, can actually change something you said before they forward it on to someone else. People have, on occasion, hit reply all instead of reply, and it was something that never should have gone to the whole company. So you always want to watch those things and make them sound like professional business communication, not just a bunch of jabbering that's going on and on and on. That's so critical, and people will judge us by that. And so always think of that, and just really, really be careful in that. I've got about 3 minutes left, so I'm just going to quickly talk about cubicle etiquette, which is so important because so many companies, people are working in cubicles. And I have a really funny but informative handout on that too, if you ever want to see that. And so we want to master that because people make subconscious assumptions that, oh, this person's always available because the door's open. Well, of course it is. Some cubicles are short, some are higher, some you can't see through, some have glass in them, but nevertheless, that's that person's private work area. So you want to treat it as such. And, always knock on the cube doorway before you want to go in, because this person might be in the middle of something that's really, really important. And so always show them the courtesy of their office space by knocking on it. You could say, we're in close quarters, would you mind giving me privacy right now while I'm on the phone? I have some important sales calls to make or whatever. So literally sometimes we have to say that in a very polite manner to people who are just barging into our cubicles and aren't taking that into consideration. Another thing is loitering. Someone might start loitering and chit-chatting and all of that. Sometimes nowadays we can put on, earplugs where you can actually know if the phone's ringing or something like that. That will kind of block out some of that noise. You could say, Mary, I'm working on something really important right now, and so it's really demanding my full attention. Can we talk later? And let people know that, because they forget a lot of times that they just don't have, total access to you and what you're doing because you're in a cubicle and not in an office. Odors know no boundaries, and so if you want to eat at your desk, make sure you dump the trash somewhere else after that. But noises, odors, things like that. I remember hearing that same company that had the "you're fired" remark. Also, they had to have a mediator come in because two people sit, a man and a woman, and the man was always clipping his fingernails, and he was always tapping his fingers on his desk, and the lady kept complaining, and the company didn't do anything about it. They actually ended up talking to a mediator to try to get this thing resolved because of noise. And so sometimes people say, oh God, that person must have had their shoes off. And so we always have to be considerate of what's going on to the people around us. And it said that, you know, just consider that within a 4 cubicle area, people are hearing what you're saying, knowing what you're doing. Something called prairie dogging, which sounds kind of funny when it's people pop their heads over the cubicle and want to talk. And you can just say, hey, I know you're right next door, but would you come around, you know, to my desk? And so just sometimes we have to flat out tell people or ask them kindly to come around, or you can't talk right now, etc. Your Cubeland home, you know, sometimes people just have a big mess in there with stacks of stuff all over the place and in pictures that are scotch taped and stuff. So make sure that pictures are in frames, everything is classy, it looks good, because that, again, not only by your physical appearance, but by your little home appearance in your office, will tell people how credible, how serious you are about yourself and your business. So that's all for today. I thank you so much. We'll go into this some more later about a lot of different things, the international business workplace protocol, proper ways to introduce yourself and other people, get a conversation going, and just some good information like that. So take care. God bless you, and we'll see you again. Thank you.